My dad could tell if you were a go-getter or aimless inside of a single afternoon. Here's how he knew, and here's the part most people get wrong about it. My dad was a farmer in Kentucky. Whenever we had a big job on the farm, hauling hay, picking up rocks, cutting tobacco, plowing the corn ground, planting in the spring, he'd send me to school the next morning and say, "See if any of your buddies want to make some money this afternoon." I'd come back with 3 or 4 kids and we'd work the field until the sun went down. When the work was done and the help was loading up to leave, my dad and I would sit on the hill outside the house, share a beer or two, and watch them go. And almost every time, before the last truck was off the gravel, he'd say something. He'd say, "Now that boy's a go-getter. He can come work with us anytime he wants." Or he'd say, "That one's still pretty aimless, hasn't quite figured out who he wants to be yet." What he meant by go-getter wasn't talent. It wasn't smarts. It was something about how a person showed up to a thing they hadn't done before, whether they leaned in or stood back, whether they cared even a little bit about doing it right. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after a quick word. And stay close. This is right where the story turns. This episode brought to you by Fifth Pour, where every bourbon bottle gets its story. Scan a bottle, read what other enthusiasts felt about it, and add your own. Every bottle has a story. Find them all at fifthpour.com. All right, we're back. So far, my dad could read a kid in one afternoon of farm work, go-getter or aimless, but here's what he actually meant by it. Now, here's the part most people miss about it. My dad didn't believe go-getter and aimless were labels you stuck on a person. He believed every single one of us is a go-getter in some part of our life, and aimless in some other part of our life. The CEO who's the best in his entire industry but shows up to his daughter's gymnastics meet and doesn't know how to move the floor mats. That man, in my dad's framework, is a go-getter at work and aimless at fatherhood. Same man, both at once. He used to say things like, "He's a go-getter at building homes but aimless as a husband," or "That one's aimless in a tobacco patch but a real go-getter on the basketball court." Same person, different field. And if anybody ever heard him say one of these things and pushed back at him, said something like, "Oh, so you're saying that kid is lazy?" he would get visibly annoyed. He'd say, "Hell no, I didn't say that." Because he wasn't saying that. He was a Catholic man. He believed every single one of God's people had value. He believed everyone was a go-getter at something, somewhere. The aimless people in his framework weren't lazy, and they weren't worthless. They just hadn't found the thing yet that turned them on. The saddest life he could describe was a person who spent their whole time on Earth aimless and never found the thing. It took me 40 years, and a few of my own kids. Stay with me. One more quick word from a sponsor, and then I'll tell you what my dad was really doing on that hill all those years. Quick pause. We make this show because we care about the things people used to do right, so it makes sense our sponsors do too. Captain's Krill Oil is run by somebody who refused to switch to the factory method. The whole industry uses chemical solvents now because it's faster. Captain still extracts krill oil mechanically, right on the boat, the way nature intended it. CaptainsKrillOil.com. Back in a sec. Now, where were we? The saddest life my dad could picture was someone who never found their thing. It took me 40 years to understand what he was doing, watching those trucks roll out. And a few of my own employees to understand what my dad was actually doing on that hill, watching the trucks roll out. He wasn't judging the help. He was reading them. He was telling me, "This kid you went to school with, this one is going to be good at the thing he loves, whatever that thing turns out to be. And that one over there, that one is still searching. Treat him kindly. He's not lazy. He's just not home yet." My dad would tell stories on the back porch when he'd had a couple of good bourbons. They'd always end the same way. He'd take a sip, smile that little smile, and say, "I don't know. That's how I heard it."